So what if you're singing bombed, meaning flopped? Are you going to let that hold you back or even make you quit? Let me tell you about the 3 times that my singing bombed and it was pretty bad. I've been singing for 55 years and I still remember those 3 events today. Get your popcorn out and let's have some fun, huh? First of all, remember that the voice is a human instrument. It's a lot different than playing guitar or piano. You know, I could have the flu and still sit down and play piano and sound halfway decent. But in singing, your body is your instrument and you have to play your instrument. So it's a lot more challenging and fun. Story number 1. I was 19 years old and a voice major in college. It was my junior recital, and among the many songs I had to sing, there was a difficult coloratura aria with a high D. That's D6. Now, that note was too high for me. I really had no business singing it in public because it was not even built in. That was definitely pushing it too far. So what happened? I got out on stage and I was a nervous wreck, and I knew the line before the high D that I wasn't going to make it. So what did I do? It's the good thing I've always been such a good comedian. I made it funny. Instead of sustaining the high D, I made it short and then I did a little laugh. And everybody thought it was great except my teacher. The next day he said, okay. But truthfully, I was so discouraged. I went home and cried to my boyfriend at the time about how hard I worked at this and how embarrassed I was. Lesson learned. That note was too high for me, and I always tell my students, we don't sing our highest note in public. We always have to have some kind of a cushion. So I got over it eventually, but my comic antics saved the show. Story number 2. 10 years later, I was 29 years old, and I was singing in a very prestigious competition and had to sing 4 songs. I worked so hard with my voice teacher and also worked with a coach from the Met. I asked him to be my pianist. Well, as soon as I walked into the room, I knew it was going to be trouble. There were the 4 judges and they all looked super snobby and I was scared to death. To make a long story short, out of the 4 songs, each one got worse. I couldn't find my voice, and by the time I got to the 4th song, I just croaked my way through it, and I know they felt really sorry for me, but they had to keep their stern demeanor and just looked at me with blank faces in dead silence as I walked out of the room. And I felt so badly that I spent all that money with my teacher and hiring the coach from the Met, and I was such a bomb. And then the first thing I did when I got home was I called my teacher on the phone and was crying to him on the phone, and he wasn't all that sympathetic. He just said, look, stop worrying so much about what people think of you. Well, actually, he said it in more colorful language, but I can't repeat it here. Lesson learned. While I was in good shape vocally because I prepared for months and I was a pretty good singer by then, I did not have the performance experience. I was not ready for an audition of that caliber. I should have gotten more performance experience, whether it would be recitals or solos at church or auditioning for community groups. So yes, we need to challenge ourselves, but the challenge must be appropriate for our level of experience, or else it's really not fair to us. Story number 3. Advance 13 years later. I was 42 years old and I had an audition for what I considered my dream role. I prepared months for this, and I told my teacher that my heart bled for that role. And he said, look, you're setting yourself up. You can't think like that. But I don't care. He said that, and I still said, nope, I have the perfect voice for that role, and I have the perfect look. So what happened? About 5 days before, I came down with a really bad cold, which turned into a bad case of bronchitis. I mean, I was coughing so much, you couldn't even understand my speaking voice, never mind trying to sing. I had planned to cancel the audition, but I was home moping all day long. And then my husband said to me, look, you're just feeling sorry for yourself. Why don't you just go to the audition and try? Well, I'm sure he meant well, but that wasn't the best advice. So I got all dolled up for this fancy audition, and I showed up, and I'm telling you, you could barely even understand my speech, and I croaked my way through this big song, and it sounded more like I was gargling. And at the end, the judges just looked at me with disbelief. Lesson learned. Don't sing when you're that sick. So, these three events, as disastrous as I thought they were at the time, made me a more experienced and stronger singer. Stronger in the mind. You know, in singing, there are going to be ups and downs like everything else in life, and you're never going to please everyone. You're never going to be perfect, and that's fine. Now, experience helps you develop a thicker skin, which you do have to have as a performer. Singing is so personal, and beyond everything else, we always have to remember that we really do it for ourselves, for the joy and satisfaction that singing brings us. Always come from that place, or else nothing really matters, does it? Now, if you want to know more about my story and how I got started, make sure to see this video. And if you experience performance anxiety, make sure to see my video on combating stage fright. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.